Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we're going to talk about herbs that you can use as first aid for venomous bites and stings. As always, I want to say herbs are not a substitute for professional medical care when you need professional medical care. Herbs, however, are very good to have on hand and know how to use if you cannot get to professional medical care or if it's something, that you feel comfortable taking care of yourself. But before we get into that, I want to thank everyone for the great response to my new book that I announced last week, Christian Herbal Medicine, History and Practice. The first week of the new year is the hardest time to try to sell anything, especially a book. And that's because people are, one, spent out from the holidays, they're spent out from Christmas. And two, people who read books were probably given a couple of books for Christmas. So the very fact that people have been buying my book this week is very gratifying. But the feedback has been really good. Okay, I mean, I make some controversial points in this book. I know it's going to make me some enemies. So far, people have been so very positive and just thrilled to see it and enjoying it. And I make the point that hopefully this will inform people. Maybe it'll open some people's minds as well. It will certainly give you the ammunition you need to either converse with someone who thinks that herbal medicine is all new age hippie stuff, Wiccans and witches and all that, and isn't compatible with Christianity. But also give you the information you need to converse with someone who is of that mindset, who is a pagan, a neo-pagan, a new age person, and explain to them the history of herbal medicine and that yes, until very recently, almost all herbal books written in the Western world were written by Christians, and all medicine was plant based, and the hospitals were church operated using herbal medicine to treat people. And yes, we have a vast, a deep, rich history as Christians of herbal medicine beginning with the pre-Christian period, the Jewish traditions, the Greek and Roman traditions, the Babylonian traditions, all that was incorporated into the practice of herbal medicine by Christians during the Holy Roman Empire after the fall of Rome, really took heart in Central Europe, strongly influences German folk medicine, strongly influences British herbal medicine, you name it. Okay. Strongly influences Russian herbal medicine. That's something I didn't even really talk about in the book. But Russia is really unique because not only do they have a really vast folk medicine and Christian herbal tradition, they're herbalists. You may have seen this guy. He's a famous in Russian folk art. He has this long blonde beard, long blonde hair. He's kind of stooped and he's out in the field gathering herbs. He's actually a saint in the Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, the Russians had this really strong tradition of herbal medicine before the Bolshevik Revolution. And afterwards, you know, Russia being a poor country, they kept using the herbal medicine. And the Russian government, much like the Chinese government, actually had the sense to fund research into their indigenous herbs and tried to celebrate that as part of their culture. You know, in the communist system, no longer was religion or Christianity allowed, but they did not allow their traditions to fall by the wayside as we did in America. Our progressive leaders decided to try to outlaw herbal medicine. Theirs decided to try to make full use of herbal medicine. So, it's really interesting. It seems like on almost a daily basis these days, I end up having to defend, usually online, the right to diversity of opinion. You've seen it. If you've been on Facebook or Twitter, if you've talked with any of your liberal friends, if you've talked with anybody who believes Dr. Fauci and the vaccine mandates and all that, there is now just one acceptable opinion. And if you don't hold that opinion, you're a heretic, you're an apostate, you're a bad person. I mean, Joe Biden will accuse you of trying to murder people if you don't believe exactly what the party line is. I'm just telling you, folks, groupthink has never ended well. When there's a problem, we need a million or 10 million people working to figure out how to solve that problem. Each person who is of good faith, who's really trying to be helpful, will come up with their own solutions, and some will work and some will fail. But when groupthink only allows one opinion, that's where you end up with death camps and concentration camps and gulags. Look, I mean, I'm not going to get deep into this, but there's a book out there. It's called The Black Book of Communism. Just go ahead and pull it up. I'm sure there's a copy. I know there's a copy on archive.org. I saw it there one time. You can read about 200 million deaths caused by groupthink. Diversity of opinion is really, and diversity of ideology. I mean, it's very important to me to say, look, as a Christian herbalist, as a conservative herbalist, this is my position and I'm going to defend it. But one thing I'm not going to do is try to stop someone else from having their own opinion. They can be completely differing from me. I mean, I pointed out one time a couple years ago, it was during the Obama administration and everything was getting very politically correct. And that year, it seemed nobody was wishing anybody a Merry Christmas. You know who wished me a Merry Christmas? An Egyptian Muslim friend of mine, an Egyptian Muslim whose parents brought him and his siblings to this country because they wanted freedom to think and believe as they chose. And out of his respect for me, he wished me a Merry Christmas, honoring me and my religion. That, that's America. That's what we're supposed to be about. Things are they're going in the wrong direction. But I think a lot of people are at least starting to wake up, and maybe this year will be the year that people finally say the emperor has no clothes. You remember the old story? The emperor's tailor had convinced him he had made him this fine suit that was just so fine it was invisible, and the emperor's out there walking around naked, and everybody's pretending like he's got a suit on until the one little boy points at him and says the emperor has no clothes. That is what is so very needed in this world right now. So very needed just to be able to say things honestly, what you think, and live beside somebody who thinks an entirely different way and still be civil and friendly and open to debate. I mean, how is anyone ever going to figure out that they're doing things wrong, that they're being self-destructive if no one points it out, if they don't even get a clue themselves? Everybody needs correction. Everybody needs compassionate debate. So that's my soapbox for the day. Now let's just get into the show. But y'all remember, new book, Christian Herbal Medicine by Judson Carroll. It is available in paperback on Amazon. It's available as an ebook off of my blog, southernappalachianherbs.blogspot.com. My other books are as well, Herbal Medicine for Preppers, Homesteaders, and Permaculture People, The Medicinal Trees of the American South, and The Herbs and Weeds of Father Johann Kunzel. So I've written 4 books by now. And I'm actually working on a 5th, which I think you're going to find very informative and also a lot of fun. It hopefully will be out by spring. So I'll keep you posted on that. Now let's get into the topic. So, herbs that can be used for venomous stings and bites. All right, first of all, I do need to address anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is an extreme allergic reaction. It can be caused from anything that gives you an allergic reaction. I mean, you may be allergic to shellfish, it may be a bee sting. There are some herbs that can be useful to help prevent shock, to pull someone back out of shock. But really, it's such a serious condition that I'm not going to really get into that. I mean, I'll mention a few things. You can research them on your own. If you know you have this severe allergic reaction, you need to have an EpiPen. Okay. You also need to have some Benadryl. You need to be proactive and take care of your own health. Um, Beyond that, I mean, one of the biggest dangers of anaphylactic shock is if your tongue or throat swells up and it cuts off your airway. All right. Some really extreme conditions. I mean, someone may have to pull out a knife and open a little hole in your throat, a tracheotomy. I mean, this can be seriously very dangerous. So, EpiPen, Benadryl, call 911, get the paramedics out there, or somehow get to an emergency room and hope they'll let you in time to see you, which doesn't always happen these days. Couple of herbs, ephedra, Huang, also called Mormon tea. This is a whole family of herbs that is somewhat like caffeine. It This is what was the original source of ephedrine. So, it can be used to help open those airways when they're shutting down. The same thing is true, just in a lesser extent, just pure caffeine from coffee or tea. The nicotine and tobacco. I mean, the demon weed. Yes, I'm not recommending you take up smoking tobacco, but if you have need of tobacco, have tobacco on hand. Okay. Lobelia is another herb that is very much like tobacco in its effect. I'll get into that in a little bit. It's antispasmodic and it dilates the bronchioles. A lobelia tincture is actually one of the herbs that herbalists recommend. Just a few drops, taken usually in a little water, eh, even straight in case of shock. I'm not recommending anything for shock except medical attention, medical care. But you look into these things and know about them in case of emergency, in case the supply chain breaks down, in case like me, what happened, I'll get into that in a minute, you're out in the woods, all right? The other end of the spectrum is just a normal reaction to a bee or a wasp, a hornet sting, a yellow jacket, anything like that. They're painful, they swell up, usually no big deal, right? The area around the bite's going to redden, it's going to swell, you may feel fever, nauseous, but a sting or two usually is not life threatening. But the best and most convenient treatment for such minor stings is what we call spit poultice. Spit poultice is where you take the herb, you chew it up, and you put it right on top of the sting. The two best are tobacco and plantain. Right? Tobacco is by far the superior herb. Just a little bit of tobacco, any kind of tobacco. I mean, I like to have natural burley tobacco, keep a little twist on me when I'm out hiking or, it's for emergency purposes. It helps with my asthma if I have an issue. You put the tobacco, you chew it, put it on there, and it will take out the inflammation. The pain will stop almost immediately. The swelling will go down. It's just great. I mean, that's my go-to. Plantain does the same, but it's nowhere near as dramatic. I mean, it will help like 50%, where tobacco helps like 95%. Plantain, though, can also help draw out venom. It's always good to combine the two if you possibly can. So here's my little story. I've mentioned this before, but a couple of years ago, I'm out in the woods and I stumbled over a hidden hornet's nest. I never saw a thing coming at me, but I mean, it felt like I had been shot. One hornet stung me on my left nipple just by my heart. Another one got me on the neck in a vein, and another one stung me on my thumb directly in a vein. I mean, three stings immediately, and I mean, it really felt like I'd been shot. Uh, Very quickly, minor sting became a serious issue because of where I was stunned. The venom was going straight into my bloodstream. I mean, I could feel the effects hit my lungs and heart hard. My heart rate became irregular. breathing was labored and shallow, and my blood pressure was dropping. I don't even really have allergies to insect stings. This was pure reaction to the venom and the shock to the system of being stung like that. I mean, it was not good, and I was miles away from any help. I had a twist of natural burley tobacco in my pocket. Immediately, I bit off a chunk and began chewing it. I had some Benadryl tablets in my backpack. I had some BC powders. BC is a caffeine and aspirin mix, very useful when needed. Um, and it's a powder form, so it uptakes quickly. You just drop that back, take a swallow of something, and it goes straight into the system, straight into the bloodstream. I also had a little bourbon on me. I washed down the Benadryl and the BC powder with a couple swallows of bourbon, and I began looking around, and there was some broadleaf plantain. There's probably going to be some kind of plantain just about anywhere where you are. Seriously, plantain is such a ubiquitous plant; it's more common than dandelions. I grabbed some plantain leaves, chewed them up, put them with the tobacco, put that on the bites, and took whole leaves of the plantain, licked them and stuck them on top like a bandage. It actually works. You can use plantain as an emergency bandage. Very good for that purpose, in fact. Um, so the pain stopped really quickly because I had the tobacco and I had the plantain. The caffeine and the aspirin and the BC powder combined with the nicotine and the fact that I kept hiking at a steady pace kept me from going into shock. The bourbon and aspirin normalized my heart rate, but my lungs were still going crazy. I mean, just burning because Benadryl takes, about a half hour to break down in your stomach, get into your bloodstream, and take effect. So I'm looking around and I spotted some lobelia. I've talked about lobelia before for asthma. I grabbed the lobelia and I ate about half the plant, maybe even the entire plant. I mean, well, this was a small lobelia. I mean, lobelia can grow up to almost 3 feet tall, in garden conditions. This was no more than a foot, and I just grabbed the top of it and ate it. Now, lobelia being like tobacco has a nicotine-like effect, and it will make you throw up if you eat too much. But I've used it a lot. I'm used to it a lot. If you're going to use lobelia yourself, you want to start with a small dose and kind of find the right dosage for yourself. It's very individualized. If you have a tolerance buildup, you can use a lot more. A little bit may make a person who's never had it before throw up. Okay. Well, I figured if I did throw up in that instance, it might actually help. I didn't even worry about it. I just grabbed it and ate it, and I was fine. I mean, I didn't throw up at all. Um, and lobelia is effective in that way to prevent shock because it opens the airways, and it also has sort of a calming effect to the nerves. I don't really know how to quantify that, but there's definitely a nervine type effect to lobelia while also being a little stimulating at the same time. So that's all I could do with what I had, and thank God I was prepared. I mean, I've had asthma since I was 3, and I learned the hard way just to carry a few things in my backpack just in case. And I recommend everybody, whatever your condition is, whatever your weakness is, we'll say, get the herbs, get familiar with them, carry them, keep them on hand, keep them in your medicine cabinet, keep them in your medicine kit in your car, keep them in your backpack. Um, that time, I mean, it saved my life. I just kept hiking. I made it back just fine. Other herbs that are very useful are sage. This is common sage, this is garden sage, Salvia officinalis. This is not American white sage, which is sagebrush. Okay, always got to make that distinction. This is garden sage. This is what you put in your sausage. All right. This is the sage that the ancients, some people say it was Hippocrates, other people attribute it to just a saying of the time said, why should a man die if he has sage in his garden? They believed it could cure anything. Well, sage, may not be able to cure anything, but it is actually so effective and so used by our ancestors. There's a legend that says the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, blessed the sage plant, saying, from here into eternity, you will be the favored flower of mankind. I give you the power to heal man of all illnesses and save him from death, as you have done for me. The legend being that sage actually hid the Holy Family from Herod's troops when they were fleeing to Egypt, when they went and killed all the firstborn sons. The sage plant hid them. So that's a legend, probably not a lot of truth to it, but that is how respected sage has been throughout history. And and actually, there's several herbs that are supposed to have been blessed by the Virgin Mary. So whether it's true or not, it's definitely useful. Um, Sage really it's a nice astringent. It's good for insects, bites, and stings, and you can crush it, apply it as a poultice, just like plantain. Lady's mantle, another one is associated with the Blessed Virgin Mary, may be used externally as an astringent wash to reduce inflammation. It helps with pain and the itching of stings. All right, there's what we call stinking chamomile, and I know you just really want to go out and find some stinking chamomile. It's not really a chamomile. It's Anthemus catula, I think is the Latin name. Anthemus catula or something like that. It's just an herb. The leaves rubbed on the skin may ease pain and inflammation, but for some folks it can cause an allergic rash if you're actually allergic to that plant. Um, there's purslane, the another weed. Purslane is a nice little pot herb. Actually, it's very. If you like okra, you'd like to eat purslane. It can be used specifically for stinging caterpillars. It's the best thing if you get stung by one of those very painful stinging caterpillars. Get some purslane and make a poultice and put it on there. Goat's beard is let's see, a root poultice of goat's beard, and yeah, that's not the beard of a goat. That's an herb called Aruncus diocus, whatever. Root poultice was used by the Cherokees for bee sting. That's all I know about that plant. I've never tried it. One thing I do know a lot about is red trillium. Trillium is very rare in most places. It's so common in the Appalachian Mountains where I live that around Easter every year it just fills the woods, fills the yard, it's everywhere. We have big red trilliums, we have white trilliums, we have multicolored trilliums. We have all kinds of trilliums, big ones, little ones, you know, a whole bit. What I do is where they grow in the path, and I know they're going to get stepped on, crushed, a car's going to run over them. I'll harvest those and leave the rest alone. Okay, those are not going to survive. The reason I'm so careful with trilliums is one, they're just an absolutely beautiful flower. They're very much associated with Easter because they have three leaves, they have three petals on one flower. They're very much associated with the Trinity and Easter and all that. But they only have one flower that produces three seeds. And because they only have three leaves, if you pick a leaf, you might be able to get by with picking one leaf, but that plant is going to lose a third of its energy from the sun. You can kill the whole plant. If you pick it, it doesn't get to spread those three seeds. Um, Trillium is just so easily over harvested. I only take the ones from the path. So, Trillium has been traditionally used for insect bites. And it was really popular among early American physicians. But the only, I mean, I've done a lot of research on this. The only properties I can find that would be useful for stings and bites are that it's astringent and antiseptic. So, I just grab some oak bark or some pine needles, thuja, which is arborvitae. Why dig up such a pretty little plant that only blooms very briefly every year when there are much more common and abundant herbs all around us that can do the same thing? But in an emergency, if you need to use trillium, now you know about it. Spiderwort is another Native American remedy for insect bites and stings applied as a poultice of the mashed up plant. Wild lettuce, it's a common weed, it's the ancestor of our salad lettuces. It's often used for pain and relaxation. The milky sap in about 50% of the people who use it is somewhat similar to an opiate. The other 50%, it won't have any effect at all. And there's always been controversy over does it do anything or is it all in your head? No, it actually works for about 50% of people. The leaves can be used as a poultice for stings. Prickly lettuce might do the same thing, but probably wouldn't be real soothing because it has prickles. But I don't know if the opiate like painkilling effects are used or if it's just soothing to the bite. I think it's more of just soothing, and it is slightly astringent and it's cooling. Lettuces have a cooling quality to them. Wild yam is such an interesting herb, so useful. It's been found useful for insect stings, spider bites, and it's not at all related to the sweet potato, by the way. This is a completely different product. It was actually it can mimic hormones. It has saponins in it, and was originally used as an ingredient in birth control pills. It's not really used for that purpose anymore, but 90% of the literature you'll find about wild yam, all about its hormonal like aspects, when actually it is a really useful and interesting medicinal herb. And Labrador tea. Labrador tea is also used externally as a wash for sores, burns, ulcers, and stings. Now, when we get specifically into spiders, most spider bites can be treated just like you would an insect sting. The exception are two that are extremely venomous. These spiders have what we call a necrotizing venom. Well, it's like the venom of many venomous snakes. I mean, like a rattlesnake or such, a copperhead. This is a necrotizing venom, meaning that the venom breaks down tissue. It pre-digests the food before the snake or the spider eats you, basically. So, brown recluse and hobo spider are the two. And if you ever had any experience with this, you get bitten by a brown recluse or something, it's going to cause this like big rotting sore that does not want to go away. It can last for months. It could be a real problem, actually. The really great thing about this, okay, we have echinacea. Echinacea used to be known as snake oil because it was used for snake bites. Well, it's actually like the one thing that actually helps because echinacea actually protects and causes the propagation. It causes your body to make hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is what that venom is breaking down. So echinacea, absolutely wonderful. It's purple coneflower. It can be rudbeckia. Always have some echinacea on hand. The other thing that's really important with these types of bites are what we call drawing poultices. I mentioned these last week. Really good drawing poultices can be made from plantain. And again, it's the weed. It's not a banana-like thing. Prickly pear cactus pads. Take the spines off, of course, and then use the pulpy inside part of the pad. Good clean clay, like French clay, or charcoal. Charcoal is really good at pulling poisons out. It can be used internally for um, food poisoning or poisoning of any sort, actually. But externally, it will help pull that venom out. That's according to folk medicine. I'm really not sure how it works, but apparently it does. And if you remember my interview with Marjorie Wildcraft, she tells about how she used remedies just like this to treat her own bite from copperhead, and she was very successful with that. So it can definitely be done. This folk medicine can save your life. Her report is called Snake Bite: How I Successfully Treated a Venomous Snake Bite at Home. The 5 essential preparations you need to have. It's available through the Grow Network. Get it today. Seriously. Just a few months ago, I nearly stepped on a copperhead myself walking in a suburban neighborhood, and it was crossing the road. I don't know if it was crossing the road or it probably crawled out on the road to get warm, after the asphalt had been heated by the sun. But I'm just, walking down the street, minding my own business, walking the dog, looking up, and then suddenly there's a copperhead 2, 3 feet in front of me getting ready to strike me. It didn't, thank God, but it could have very easily could have been my dog as well. Dogs often get bitten by rattlesnakes, especially, and you have these herbs on hand and understand how to use it. Field bindweed, which is the weed farmers hate, it's wild morning glories. It's all in the fields. It's a wonderful medicinal herb. Field bindweed has some anti-cancer properties. Very important. Look that up if you're interested in that kind of thing. But um, it was used by Native Americans as a wash for spider bites. Sunflower, common sunflower, like we get the seeds, sunflower seeds. The leaf is used as a poultice for snake and spider bites. Wood lily, that's Lilium philadelphicum, I believe. Flowers are used as a poultice for spider bites. Wild yam again, great for spider bites. All kinds of herbs for snake bites. There was this oh gosh, so many of our herbs are known as what we call snake medicine. Okay. When the early settlers came to America, they learned about native plants from Native Americans. And they'd go to the local medicine man and they'd say, I've been bitten by a snake. And he'd give them an herb. Every herb that was used for snake bite came to be known as snake root or snake medicine or snake this or snake that. All right. They can be very confusing. So I'm going to try to kind of narrow that down a little bit. First of all, there's wild calla or water arum, very bitter plant that some people say is good for foraging. It's not. Native Americans use the root as a poultice for snake bites. Rattlesnake master, that's one. That's Orangium yucifolium. Very important, excellent herb. It's traditionally been used as one of the primary herbs poulticed by Native Americans for snake bites. There's downy rattlesnake plantain, ditto for snake bites, and it actually has like sort of an interesting pattern on the leaf that may also help give it that name. It's not a true plantain though. It's actually Goodyeria pubescens, and this are once widely used for snake bites. Now it's really pretty rare. You want to grow this one. You don't want to harvest it from the wild if you can help it. Garlic is so important. That's one of the main herbs, if I remember correctly, that rosemary used. Uh, Garlic used internally, externally as a poultice, with snake bite. Garlic's good for everything. Black cohosh, that's Simicifuga racemosa. Tincture used for snake bites. Snake root, another one of those. That's Seniculara marilandica, root used by Native Americans as a poultice for snake bites. All these herbs, you notice snake keeps coming through the name. Well, if it's called snake something, it's probably good for a snake bite. Flowering spurge, it's euphorbia, root poultice used for snake bite. White snake root, Eupatorium, Eupatorium rugosum. Native Americans, early Americans used the root poultice for snake bites. Plantain leaf pussy toes, leaves used as a poultice for snake bite. Marsh marigold, this one was used by the Ojibwe. They made a tea of the leaves and mixed it with maple syrup. This is according to Peterson's Field Guide of Eastern Central Medicinal Plants. Great book. Uh, Totally recommend you get that one if you look for any herbs in the wild and you live east of the Mississippi. Well, they say that that tea was very popular for settlers, not only as a snake bite antidote, a remedy to the venom, but as a tea that was good for coughs. Um, see, St. Andrew's cross, that's one of our varieties of St. John's wort. Native Americans would chew the root and poultice it on a snake bite. Perfoliate bellwort, ditto. False aloe, also called rattlesnake master. We have two or three plants that are actually called rattlesnake master. Root tea used as a wash for snake bites. Fennel, the kitchen herb, the funiculum. I have some trouble saying that one, but fennel. It's wonderful in Italian sausage. Also, powdered seeds are used in China as a poultice for snake bite. Canada goldenrod, flower tea used for snake bites. It's Solidago canadensis, just common old goldenrod. Black-eyed Susans, Rudbeckia are the same thing as Echinacea in their use. They're close relatives. Rattlesnake weed, that's Hierarchium venosum. Tea of the leaves and roots used for snake bite remedy. Canada lily, feverwort, tobacco, as I mentioned before. Burdock, one of my favorite herbs. Crushed seeds used as a poultice for snake bite. Jacob's ladder, wild epicac, poultice again for snake bites. Virginia snake root, that's Aristolochia. That's one of the most common of the old remedies. Root tea used for snake bites. Common juniper, just juniper, whether it's eastern red cedar, which is truly a juniper, it grows wild around here, or any of the landscaping junipers, or any of the juniper. Juniper is an excellent herb for so many purposes, but the fruits, the little cones, the blueberries, are used internally and externally for snake bite. New Jersey tea or red root, that's Ceoanthus. Ceanothus, that's another one I have trouble with. Root tea used for snake bites. American ash tree, the inner bark, useful for snake bites. Common catalpa, that's another tree. Bark tea used as a snake bite antidote. Tulip tree, that's Liriodendron, tulip poplar. Native Americans used the bark tea for snake bites. Dutchman's pipe, Aristolochia, this is another version of Aristolochia. Venus maidenhair fern, that's a really such a pretty fern. Doesn't look like a fern at all. I have a lot of this growing around my house, and I use it medicinally. Um, some people put a little warning on there that it could cause cancer, but I don't use it in large enough doses or frequently enough to worry about it. If you have a history of cancer, don't take it internally, obviously, but used as a poultice externally for snake bites, probably fine. Rattlesnake fern. It's actually a fern that was specifically used for rattlesnake bites. And the Swedish bitters. Now, we always talk about Swedish bitters. One of the ingredients you may remember is called theriac venison. Theriac was originally a remedy for poisons and venoms. Swedish bitters, really good to have on hand, and I use them daily. You can use your Swedish bitters as a poultice on any wound, bite, sting, etc., and take it internally as well. I love Swedish bitters. I start my morning every day with Swedish bitters. And the only thing, we'll just kind of wrap it up here with Lyme disease. Lyme disease is so very serious. And a couple of years ago, I was one of the first people to say, hey, this coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, this uh, COVID-19 that came from Wuhan, China, in an odd way that it had never been transmissible from human to human before. Some humans had gotten a similar illness from bats, but suddenly this virus has figured out how to jump species and become easily transmissible through humans. Wonder if that virus originated in the biological weapons lab in Wuhan, China. I mean, does anyone think that's a coincidence? And that got me kicked off Facebook. When I said that, this was even before Donald Trump said it. This was before anybody said it, as far as I know. There may have been one or two of them. The first time I said that, all hell broke loose on Facebook. Thousands of people that I don't know started calling me a bigot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I love the Chinese people. I've literally studied traditional Chinese medicine for a decade. I mean, I used to do Silam Kung Fu, Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong. I mean, I'm into Chinese cooking. I love the history. I love reading the old Taoist writers. What are you talking about? I'm not a bigot. Well, you're a bigot. You're a bigot. You can't say that. And then suddenly my account was locked. Could not get back into my account for over a week. When I finally got back in there, I had been called, as Neil Bortz, an old talk show host, used to say, everything but a child of God. Had been banned from most of the herbal and permaculture groups that I was part of, and I shut down my account and I haven't been on Facebook since. Okay, a little bit of an overreaction, but as my grandfather used to say, the hit dog hollers. The dog that got hit's the one that's going to yelp, right? They had a full force effort not to let any bad publicity come back on China. Why? Maybe because China owns us, thanks to our phenomenal debt, historical debt that has never been seen before in the history of the world. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not just accusing China of probably creating that virus in a lab in Wuhan. America probably invented Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, as a bioweapon in a bioweapons lab in Lime County, Pennsylvania. At the time, they were, this has been documented, trying to figure out how to infect ticks with a deadly virus that they could then drop in Russia in case we went to war with the Soviet Union. It probably got out. A lot of people speculate it did. We both do it. Come on, y'all. Like I said, we have to be honest about what's going on. Putting on blinders and sticking our fingers in our ears and refusing to believe something someone said just because they happen to be on the opposite side of the political spectrum is only going to have you in a car driving off a cliff with nobody to warn you. We really got to get these scientists to quit developing deadly viruses that can cause pandemics. I mean, it's not moral. It's not right. They need to be defunded, and a lot of people really ought to go to jail, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah, Lyme disease probably was created by American scientists in a bioweapons lab. It is a devastating, horrible illness. Um, it is widespread. It's becoming more widespread every year as as the virus spreads among ticks and transmits through the animals they bite and all that. The best thing I can recommend you do is get a book by Stephen Herrick Buhner. I recommend Buhner a lot. He's one of my favorite herbal writers, even if he is, you know, somewhat of a jerk. Um, he's funny. He's irascible. He's very well informed. He's actually a descendant of one of, America's Surgeon Generals. He's not. He certainly does not share my ideology. He's not a man of the conservative viewpoint or a Christian viewpoint, but he knows what he's talking about when it comes to herbs. He has written a book called Healing Lyme. If you have Lyme disease, if you live in an area like I do, where Lyme disease is fairly common, you need this book on your shelf. He has a full herbal protocol that people say has really helped them. Beyond that, there's an herbalist I used to know named Barbara Crowless. Barbara Crowless was one that I lost touch with during that time I was locked out of Facebook, and I've lost her contact information. If you happen to run across any of Barbara Crowless's works, she was developing, the last I heard, her own herbal protocol for treating Lyme disease, and it seemed very promising. It was being noticed by medical professionals and researchers. So that wraps up this week's show. Y'all have an absolutely wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget, if you want to buy a good herb book, buy my books. All right. See you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.